right, it's the red zone time, ready to rock and roll here with our awesome leadership table that we have today. Superintendent Round Table number 5. Number 5, Josh Tobar, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA. Ready to learn from all of the knowledge that's here before us. So make sure that you're sharing it, liking it if you're seeing it on the rebroadcast. If not, join us tonight and shout out those questions and or comments for all of these awesome leaders. So if you are in Alaska or you're in Hawaii, whether you're in Maine or in Florida or anywhere in the 48 together states, let's get together because only way, learning from each other, our kids can move ahead, move forward, and become the best versions of themselves. What do you think about that, Dean?
Hey, happy Thursday night to everybody out there on the call. Listen, Thursday nights are all about getting better, as we say this all the time. My name is Dean Packard. I'm the principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. I'm one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And Unlock the Middle is all about bringing people to the table who just want to share out some of the tidbits that they've learned along the years and make others better around them. So again, we are excited tonight to look at a 30,000 view, Josh, of the educational system and things of that nature. More importantly, from a superintendent's lens. So again, welcome aboard, everybody, and I guess we're going to go right back to you, Josh, and let's kick it around a little bit, my friend.
So one of the things that the superintendent, from all the way from the crossing guard to the first year teacher, the soup. You know what? But we all have an origin story. We all started from somewhere, from one single point of view, and sometimes people don't want to get close to the soup. Don't get too close. So, you know what? You all started somewhere. You all had that transition from one stage to another stage, from one district, from one campus to another one. So introduce yourself to everybody, and we'll go around, starting out there with Joseph in Delaware. So introduce yourself to everybody. What roles have you had in public education that got you up until this point here as a superintendent? Tell the world.
Absolutely. So first, thank you for having me in the red zone. I appreciate that. I'm coming to everyone this evening, Wilmington, Delaware. The district I'm a part of is Newcastle County Vocational Technical School District. And interestingly, I didn't start there, even though Delaware's a pretty small sandbox. I started as a social studies teacher, high school, in the district that I grew up in. And so I was 5 years an assistant principal that was evaluating me, knocked on my door and said, you know what, Joe, I think you should become an administrator. I did not like the idea. Didn't think that was going to happen. Actually, I told her, quote unquote, I like kids too much. And she kind of painted a much different picture. And she left the school, became a principal, and I followed her as an assistant principal. I was there for about 4 years as an assistant principal. I was taking a doctoral class, and lo and behold, the superintendent of another district, a sister district in the state, just a few miles up the road, was a co-teacher, first and only time he's ever taught at the university or in that course. So I think it was just meant to be. He had a position posting up. I asked him about it, and he really told me I didn't have a shot at getting it because it was in career and tech ed. So I didn't apply. And then he asked me, like, the next class, why didn't you apply, Joe? And I said, well, you made it pretty clear that I wouldn't get it. He said, yeah, but nobody knows you in my district. This would be a great way. So the assistant principalship came up at that same school because one of the APs got it. I ended up going into that district, assistant principal at Howard High School of Technology. It's an awesome school in Wilmington, Delaware. I was there for only a year, transitioned to the principalship, and then was principal 7 years. Then I was director of assessment and accountability for roughly 7 years. And now I'm 3.5 years into the superintendency.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so awesome. Melissa, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking my invite on LinkedIn. Appreciate you.
Sure, Dean and Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here with this distinguished panel today. I have a very unique story, I think probably different than most educators, but I decided to enter the career of education and became an educator within 1 hour's time, and that's a true story. I had been elected to serve as a justice of the peace in this county where I currently work. It's my home county. I served in that capacity for 5 years. I found myself a single mom, and I decided politics was not the way to support 2 children. So my mom was giving me the local gossip from our small town, said that a teacher at the junior high, an English teacher to be exact, had been fired. She was also a coach. I had a minor in English. I was an athlete in high school. And so I immediately, didn't even hear the end of the conversation, got on the phone, called a former administrator when I was a student. He was still there. He was the superintendent. I called him. He said, come right up immediately. I remember I was wearing tennis shoes, a t-shirt, some shorts. And within an hour's time, I began my teaching career. And there was no turning back, no regrets. It was absolutely the right decision for me. So I served as a teacher and a coach in my home district where I grew up for 2 years. Then I moved over across the county to my current district. I served as a teacher and coach in this district for 2 years, became a high school counselor for 10 years, high school principal for 3 years, and I'm currently in my 6 years superintendent. So it's interesting journey, but one I wouldn't trade for the world, and it's absolutely become my life work.
So awesome. There you go. Origin story. Amazing. Beautiful. Ms. Vega, welcome to the show.
Thank you all so much for having me. I'm a little bit under the weather, so my rough today, but thank you all so much for having me to where I'm at today. I'm actually back in my hometown of Tornillo, the beautiful community there. You know, I'm my wildest dreams. Did I think that I was going to be able to come back to my home as a superintendent, even though that's where I thought about in my schooling that what I wanted to do was to do early on in high school that I wanted to be a superintendent. But when I found out that I had to be an educator first before tendency, I was like, what? I have to become a teacher. So anyway, that was something as a teenager. And so I pursued my degree in education, served for 3 years as a early childhood education, Socorro district, and which I ended up doing 17 years. The majority of my years have been at that district, but I moved from to an instructional specialist, which, you know, I think those 5 years as an instructor gave me the opportunity to know how important it is to work in the gray zone and to always stay ready to support teachers, because really that's what I love to do. That's when I tell them, you know, I really don't like kids. I really don't. You know, me in front of, but I love to be able to work with adults who are going to impact the kids that I love. You know, I think that is something that has got me through it really has pushed me to see the great changes that throughout the years in education has allowed me to see the impact that fulfill through adults. And right after I became an instructional specialist, I went obviously into assistant principalship, and majority of my career has been in leadership roles. The last as a superintendent back in my hometown, which amazing things are. One, I attributed to the fact that I know the majority of the people know me. There's pros and cons to that. When you go back and your parents still live in the school district that, you know, your building that you're working, and everybody, we're all related. But nonetheless, you know, I guess it's always, as an educator, you know, you have this great responsibility towards, and it's personal. But when you go back home and you have that opportunity as a superintendent or a leader is just an added realization that you give into your job. And so I've been really blessed to that, and hopefully, you know, that's where I'm going to be able to, not say finish my career, because you're never retired. I say you're never retired, but the superintendency, I hope that is where I'm able to say, you know, and this is what I was back in when I was 16, you know, 15. I want to become a superintendent. That this is what I envisioned. And
Thank you, Rosie. Welcome back, Angelica. Welcome back to now the Red Zone. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So my first job in education, I actually was an office manager. So I was a classified employee, had the opportunity to teach in the Socorro Independent School District. I was an English as a second language high school teacher on the border. Then taught some English reading, English electives, some fine arts English electives, and also was a softball coach. From there, I had the honor of getting promoted there at the same campus and becoming an assistant principal at Socorro. Eventually having the superintendent kind of ask me to apply for a new high school that was being built. And so became a high school principal, and had that same superintendent, who had a lot of faith in me and believed in me even when I didn't, asked me to follow him to California to be a chief academic officer. So I was a chief academic officer, an associate superintendent, and I've been a superintendent in Southern California, in West Texas, and now in North Texas.
You know, I'm listening to your journeys and how you got to where you are today. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And it all starts off in the grassroots when somebody either tapped you on the shoulder when you were a teacher, or you had that plan, you were happy where you were, but other doors opened up for you. And being that superintendent, and what I see all the time, and I've been a principal now for almost 20 years, you are the face of that school, of that learning community, and everything that you do. And there's always that one person that kind of gave you that little push, or that one event that changed your trajectory from that classroom teacher, from being a basketball coach, or being that upper level into the higher level at the superintendent level. But I mean, like assistant superintendent and up. What was that for you? And why don't we start off with Rosie? Who was that person, and what was that determining factor? Because who wants to be a superintendent today? Think about it for a second. You're everything to everybody, but that inspires a lot of people. And I tell you, that's what kind of makes me kind of just smile. So, Rosie, you're up.
You know, you have great people. There's not always just one individual, right? That they just empower who you are, and sometimes just recharge you, and not only tell you but advise you. So I've been starting from my parents to my husband, and definitely have been a great inspiration. But there's one individual, Al Garcia. He's just he's currently a principal still in the Socorro School District, very successful. You know, when I got my first job as a teacher, gave me a question that till this day I'm like, what was the answer, right? But he goes, you know, this is going to be the determining decision for me going into the classroom. And he says, if you were to be a character Disney a book, what would it be, right? And I said, you know, if I answer that question, I know you're not going to give me the job. And he looks tired, and I was like, what? You know, and so at that part, great friends, but throughout all of them talking about always he was the one pushing me to, and just saw something in me that every single position until my principalship, he was the one who said either told someone for their job, or when he left, each of his positions took on that position. And it was really, really neat. I worked with my career until this day, even though he's still a principal and he did become one time, we still talk to each other because at the end of the day, that's what it is. But, I've been blessed to surround myself with people who challenge my thinking. And I always say this, I'm always drawn to people that are not yes people, but to challenge every single thing that I'm saying and I'm doing. But at the same say, hey, you're going to try it and you're going to own your decision. And so that's, I'm where I'm at because, I have him till this day.
Rosy, you still have a smile on your face, so I can tell you love what you do. That's vitally important. Joe.
It's a wonderful question. And similar to Rosy, it's very hard to pinpoint one person. So I'm going to go through just a couple and then take this in an odd direction. I hope that's okay.
Fine.
Dr. Countley was probably the first to really believe in me that I could become an administrator. And I didn't know. I didn't even think that way. I didn't decide to go into teaching to begin with. I student taught mainly as a backdrop. I wanted to be really a historian. And so I was like, well, if I can't get a job, if I can't get into grad school, I didn't have money, I'll go student teach. And I student taught at a local high school here called William Penn, and I loved it. And so that changed it. I became a teacher, but it was really her faith in me that changed really how I saw myself. I never saw myself necessarily as a leader. So I think that was a pivotal point in my life. The person who really mentored me, though, from principalship to here where I am now is Steve Godowski. He was superintendent of the district I'm currently the superintendent of. He also was the state of Delaware Secretary of Education. He's been instrumental. We still keep in touch to this day. I still consider him a dear friend and a great mentor because he believed in me. I was young. I was like 32 as a new principal, 1,600 kids, basically the flagship of the district in size. And I was new to vocational ed. And in Delaware, vocational ed is different. We're full comprehensive high schools. So even though our kids only take career and tech classes, they're with us all day, full sports, everything. It's not a shared model. So it was a big deal for him to take a risk with me, but he took me under his wing and really developed me. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful. And I calmed down a lot. I was aggressive. I was out of the gate. Like, I think people would say I was angry. I didn't think I was angry, but he really tempered me quite a bit and helped me get measured in many ways. But I wanted to flip it because my whole thought on doing things just better and right came from a chapter in Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery. And there's a chapter in that book where he decides to get an education, and he shows up at the school, the Hampton School, and his examination he knows is just a broom, and he's told to sweep the room. And I just have kept that in the back of my mind. And as he became an educator, he took that broom and knew he would only get into that school if he really swept that room well. And he dusted it like 4 times to prove he wanted to be a part of it. And then what he did as an educator, as a civil rights activist, I would say, I know we're talking about people directly, but it's hard to say like one book, one time really affects you, but that did really change my outlook on opportunities and what's possible for kids. So I'm very grateful to him for writing that book, and then also what he did for vocational education in general.
I love that. Joe, I love the word tempered because the longer you're in leadership, the more tempered you need to become and the more measured you need to be with your vision. And I absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly. And I still remember my first days as a principal. I think I took on the world. And I said, what am I doing? I'm killing myself. I got to empower people instead and allow the people to do their job and celebrate them. What a concept that is. Thanks for sharing, Joe. Angelica.
So I'm going to actually start a little bit further back. I would say if I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for some folks way back in my K-12. I had everything working against me. I should not be sitting here. And yet I had folks that helped me, spent extra time with me to teach me English. And definitely in high school, I had someone who took me from a high school dropout, gave me the opportunities, found me a job, found me a ride, and made sure that I got back into school and provided me some leadership training where I felt seen for the first time. So going into teaching, I'm going to say there's probably 4 people that have really helped me get to the seat to the superintendency. Dr. Miguel Serrano was our assistant principal when I was an ESL teacher. As he became the principal of the school, he provided me the opportunity to be an assistant principal. But before that, as a teacher, he understood being a teacher leader, empowering us as teachers, listening to our voice, and allowing us to bring ideas forward and fail forward as a learning experience to help students. Dr. Jeannie Mesa Chavez was one of my administrators, and she is the superintendent. She is a superintendent here in Texas, and she really one day said to me, you really need to get that additional graduate degree. You need to get a doctorate. And she wasn't talking to me per se, but she was talking about what she was doing and how, no matter what we do, what folks can't take away from us ever is our self-worth and our education. And so I think that she's kind of propelled me forward, and she's super organized, and she's a champion for all. Dr. Cynthia Lopez, who was our assistant superintendent, really assisted me as I transitioned into the principalship, especially opening up a brand new high school and having very little time. I was board meeting happened in January. I took the position to start for February 1st, and school started in July. So from February 1st to July, just everything that happens and construction going on at the school, she really helped me forward. And then Dr. De La Torre, who is also a superintendent here in Texas, to believe in me. I also was very young. I was 32, about to turn 33 when I became a high school principal. Then he took me to be a chief academic officer, and he has always been there to assist in any way. There's no major catastrophe or crisis because he's a calming force. So anything that's happening, you can text him. He'll get on the phone with you immediately. You just feel calm. And if you feel calm, cool, and collected, then you can take a step back and think. And then I think the thing that he's taught me the most is that we have to be reflective. He's a very reflective leader. Not only does he empower people, but he takes that time every evening to think about what went well today, what didn't, how can I improve, and let's do better tomorrow. And that alone probably has assisted me in being successful at this very crazy gig, especially at this very, very pivotal, crazy time.
Being self-reflective, building capacity, failing forward, all those things are just so super important for anybody sitting at the top. So great stuff right there. Melissa, you're up.
So I have a couple of answers, and I fully appreciate what the others have said. To kind of build upon what Dr. Ramsey said, it was those people that we stood on the shoulders of educators before us, and I go all the way back again to my K through 12 experience. And there was one educator, Dwight Muchler, in my little 1A school, who I think back and I think about his pedagogy, I think about his teaching strategies, and it wasn't that, it was the relationships he built with kids. And it was just as Dr. Ramsey described, he saw me as a person and saw my abilities, saw what I was capable of becoming. And he was the first person outside of my family, I think, that recognized that and expressed it. And I think expressing it is important. As educators, we need to learn to do that. But he taught me social studies from 7th grade on. He was my debate coach. Then later on, he became my coworker. And to this day, he sits on the board of the Region 3 Service Center. And so I'm able to maintain a relationship with him. And he was just one of those people who was expert at building relationships with children, with adults, and with the community at large. And I admire him for that, and I love him for that. And so I would begin with him, but based on what he taught me, As far as being motivated to become a superintendent, I would have to give an untraditional answer or non-traditional answer, and that would be the students in my district. And I think the more that I got to know them as a teacher and a counselor, as their high school principal, the more committed I became, and the more I wanted to give my all and give the best that I had to give, and that led me to my current position. It wasn't about me; it was about them and what I felt that they needed in a leader.
Absolutely love that. And I'll tell you, I'm going back, Joe, to what you said. I used to be that kid running through the halls where I am now a leader. So to me, there's something to be said about being in that same school district as an instructional leader at this point in time. So really good stuff right there.
Through all the different shows that Dean and Chris have created, Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, we hear a lot of guests, authors, and speakers say the commonality out there in public education right now, after those 2 years that we were at home, the discipline issues, the attendance issues, the gaps that have been created. We understand that. I mean, everybody from around the country that comes on the podcast talks about those things. Specifically in your area, I know we could mention like 10,000 things. What's one of the things that you're focusing now as we're getting into testing season, as we're getting into really now closing off this year, and we're already preparing the master schedule for next year? What are you focusing on right now, Angelica, there in your district?
Yeah, for us, it's everything you just said, but for us, it's two very specific things. Additional support and professional development to build the capacity of our adults, because for a couple of years, we haven't had the opportunity to have that face-to-face to ensure that our teachers understand their standards, that they understand how to write common formative assessments, that they know what the cycles of inquiry are, and then our assistant principals and our principals to push in to assist them. So we're working on, or we're planning executive coaching for all of our admin or campus admin from outside, so that you have a coach that's separate than the person that evaluates you, so that you can be honest and open with the needs that you have. And then for our students and adults, it's mental health supports.
Yes.
We're in a place where I'm sure the behaviors that we're having, the root cause of that is a lot of trauma, and our adults aren't thriving. And if you don't have 100% to give, if you're at 50% and you can't give that full 50%, you're giving 25%. And so we need to have adults that are thriving, a healthy system. So beyond just implementation of MTSS, it's really providing mental health supports, working with all of our partners to provide that for families, our staff, and our students. If we can't get healthy, we're never going to get back on track on the academic piece, because they're just not there yet. And we have to have empathy for that, not blame, and get right on the right path. So that's what we're working on for next year.
Thank you. Rosy, what does it look like in Tornillo?
Yes, pretty much what Dr. Ramsey just mentioned greatly on this mental crisis that we are faced with. It's just a harder time for us to deal with, even more so than it did, because we were not expecting this wave of adults going through this, but students and families. And so one of the this academic year, we worked with this very innovative and master schedule, where we provided our teachers to have more than just their conference time to provide of PD. We have a cycle of 45 minutes embedded within the. On Mondays we have PD minis based on the lessons, time for them to document. Also technology. We look also data and identified what each of our departments needed, each level's needed, and that's specifically what we are providing them during PLCs and data analysis. And so that has been a very fruitful this year. But what I'm excited about next year as well is that in our calendar minutes. And now instead of this year, we did some academy for every 9 weeks. We had 3 days, actually 2 days, next 9 weeks, because that's what teachers were asking. It's like, we're taking too much home, way too much out of there's no balance. And so we're like, what? And we tried that this year where students were full while teachers were there, but we had paras and college residents who were taking over these academies with students. Well, they didn't work. So what we're going to be doing this coming school year, our kids are actually going to be home days each 9 weeks, so that we can work with adults and provide them that time. Nevertheless, we're going to utilize those 3 days to work with our families, schools, with their children to address, for example, at the high school, we have not necessarily students like that, but we're dealing more on the vaping situation, experimenting with drugs. And so those are the things that we're bringing in, active with that with our secondary, and then of course with our pre-K 5 families to come in, and just how can we help families, especially work with their children at home in the area. We're excited about that. That's something that we have been working all year to see the special medium for the adults taking care of our children, both, but at the same time making sure that we have face-to-face commitment when we do have them there. So we have also included intervention in our school system from pre-K to 12, because as you all know, yes, after and Saturday schools, it's a sprinkle of kids. It's like herding cats, right? And so have them, that's when we're going to be doing it. And so we're excited about what's coming. I know there's so many people right now in education going to be back next year because it's hard work. It really is. To do right. It's not something just physically, mentally, but it's draining at times because we're dealing with individuals' problems. And everyone out there is that we need to stay the course. This is a very years and in our history, yet we need champions up and say we're going to find solutions for this, and we're going to work for our youth, for our kids, and for the next generation of leaders. And so I'm really happy with the challenges that I enjoy, believe it or not. I guess that's where is that I like to say that I thrive in challenging times, is to really dig deep and work with people to come up with solutions.
Thank you, Rosy. Thank you, Melissa.
I would say I would kind of echo what we've already heard. Number one, ensuring that every student has access to a well-prepared, credentialed teacher who is equipped to handle the classroom situation. As we know, that the classroom teacher is our single point of change, and so we have to have equipped teachers. The second thing, I would again echo mental health support for students, for staff, for our communities. It's obvious and it's compelling to me to hear that from Dr. Ramsey when I'm in rural Texas and it's the same two issues rise to the surface. It's an indication that this is a widespread problem.
Up there in the New England region, Joseph?
We took an interesting approach coming out of COVID. We did a SOAR analysis and focused on our strengths, opportunities, and aspirations. Surveyed a lot of different individuals, a lot of our leaders. And the primary reason for that is we wanted to see what we could capitalize on coming out of COVID. We had learned quite a bit. We didn't want to forego some of those lessons learned. And what we landed on was the core four, and this drives our work. We also abandoned our strategic plan. And some of this doesn't sit well with a lot of individuals. They like having a 5-year plan. But if you learned anything from COVID, you sometimes don't have a 1-week plan, let alone a day
Right.
plan. So what we thought is, why don't we continue to stay nimble and agile, continue to learn in this environment to do what's right for our students? And so we landed on these four, and the first was operational stewardship, which is, are we using the things that we're buying? Are people gaining, valuable lessons from like professional learning they're attending? And so there's a study out there that we use less than 5% of what we purchase. Well, money's getting tight. And so ESSER funds, we're coming to that cliff, right? So how do we know we're getting the maximum value out of what we're spending on? The second was strategic design, from HR to our student services. Like, how well are our SEL practices in our district? Are we doing them for our staff? Are we doing them for our students? Are we actually implementing activating strategies for our students that are tied to SEL? And that's all about the strategic design. So the way this fits into like a strategic plan, it's really strategic development. So the goals that people set for this year, we're continually evaluating if they were even the right goals from what we're seeing. And I think that's a mistake we've made in the past. We're going to achieve something hell or high water, even if the kids aren't with us anymore. So this is staying true to kids, listening to them. And so the other part of that is teaching and learning. We went back to the basics with teacher clarity, criteria for success, objectives, just how, and then, gradual release of responsibility. Those are our primary areas of focus, all encompass. And it's on a beautiful little graphic that one of our departments made, all encompassed by our diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we were focused on prior to George Floyd, but then doubled down after. And we didn't want to lose sight of that just because of other stuff going on. So how do we continue to move forward through that lens and filter that from the business office to all the way through our students amplifying their voice? And so we still have a long way to go. It's a lot of work because people do not like uncertainty, but so far we've stayed true to trying to evaluate what is and what is not working and adjusting.
Breaking tradition and going away from a strategic action plan that has many voices coming out of COVID, probably a genius move if you think about it, because nimble, you got to be able to adjust. We've all shown that we can do that. Really good things to think about. As I always say in our strategic plans in the past, we've had 25 mountains to climb. You need 3, give me 2, and we can work on 2 together very well and get there. Nevertheless, everybody's got a really lofty agenda. So you guys have many hats. Take this question really quickly, right? Spitball this right back at me, okay? What do you look for in a leader when you hire them not collaboratively with you, not under you, because you're all leaders that have shared collaborative vision, I can tell. And why don't we go, Joe, you start off and go backwards this time. What do you
Can they connect? Can they connect with others who they're leading and then students? Do they relate? Do they connect? This is a people business.
Boom, simple. Melissa?
I would say I'd go back to Good to Great, the classic, and that's the paradoxical blend between personal humility and professional will. It takes that humble person that has a drive, nonetheless, to make things happen.
Rosy?
I mentioned this before. I stay away from yes people. We need to be able to challenge our own thinking and become great in order for us to become great with the community that you're working for. That's so important. If not, you're going to be able to get to where you need to get if you're not having those strong connections with you are serving.
Love it. Angelica.
I think 3 things: that they have empathy, that they understand that they're the lead learner, that they just love learning. And then for me, kind of the third goes along with what Rosy was saying. But it's really somebody who's a divergent thinker, who thinks completely differently than I do and the rest of the team, so that we can have some nice, healthy conflict to get better as an organization.
And I think to be able to take reflective feedback, and it's one of the things that some people can't do without taking it personal. And when you sit at the top, you got to be able to hear what people are saying, apply it, and then grow with it. And it's one of the things that just this people business, it makes us move. So I love that. Great stuff by all you guys. Josh.
This venue allows us to connect with people from Canada, Central America, Colombia. We've had Caribbean islands here on the podcast. So this is a great venue. So my question to you out there, Joseph, is how can you help out by using this free PD? Think about what we've heard here tonight, the last 41 minutes. There is tons of nuggets of knowledge here being dropped that people can grow from. So how can we embed podcasts a little bit better? It's free, no PO needed, no financing and steps going through that. And also, as we mentioned, PD is the best way for our team members since we've been excluded from that for a while. So my question to you is, how can we embed podcasts more in there, the growth of it? And also, what conferences can you send or have you sent your team members, yourself, to make sure that they become better versions of yourself? Because you know what? Maybe some people haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I think one way I try to achieve this, I have a weekly newsletter that goes to my team. And that's all district administrators and building administrators in the district. It's called Envision. And so we landed on some core principles of ours, and we go through a principle a month. And it's that we climb together and we focus on communication, leadership, instruction, management, and behavior. So we're wrapping up management, and I featured Pat Lencioni's podcasts, different ones, and so a lot of that is how not to be a coward. And so, like, when you have to have a tough conversation, and I'll often ask a reflection question. Like this last month, I asked the team to be vulnerable. And what are some ways you're sabotaging your success when you're leading people? And we all have these Achilles heels. We just have to admit them. But if we admit them, just like was said tonight, we'll grow. And if that's our goal, that's what we'll do. It was also said earlier, so that's one way. The other, when you talk about conferences and so on, I was introduced to Learning Forward years ago. I think if you're going to be an instructional leader, then you're going to want to push like in those spaces. I right before the show, we had talked about AASA, and I think that's great for superintendents. I think things like NASSP are wonderful. I'm at the secondary level, so you know that. But I'll say, if you want to become an instructional leader, if you want to truly know what should be done in the classroom, go to something like Learning Forward. I'm a big fan of it. I wish it wasn't in December. It just always falls at an odd time for me. But I've met wonderful, wonderful educators at those conferences who know what they're talking about that works in the classroom.
Thank you for sharing. Rosy.
I guess my advice to any upcoming associate superintendent is that stay close to instruction. Teaching them time, so especially early on in getting into the superintendency, we just superintendent conferences and just learning as much as we can from podcasts in the area of superintendency, but never lose focus on the superintendency, and that is to work with the different fields within your responsibility. I every year, what I do is that I go into counselors conferences, to go into technology, because that's the only way that I'm going to be ready to be able to have conversations about what is, the best practice out there, and to be able to connect with individuals who are in place these best practices, and therefore be able to put that so that we don't have, since we're so small, there's, my cabinet is five people, so we wear a lot of hats. So in order for us to be able to serve and help leaders, leading the counseling team, leading the librarians, to be able to do that if we are not well versed with that. So, there's great conferences, no matter which one it is, but stay purposeful in what it is that you are investing your funds to travel and go in and get those conferences in, that we, go in and we like year after year. But the truth of the matter is, the best advice would be, there's an array of information podcasts that we definitely can tap into.
Thank you, Melissa.
I would say a couple of things. First of all, we have to model a commitment to lifelong learning. And today I'm hoping to model that, because this is new to me and I'm just so thrilled to be a part of it. I think it's very worthwhile. And as a part of this process, Josh, when you reached out to me, I started looking at your podcast, the others, and Unlock the Middle, and then branched out from there. So I think that's first, and we have to model that. Then next, we have to align ourselves shoulder to shoulder with our students, with our staff, in our commitment to lifelong learning. And I have found that once we exhibit that in our lives, and we communicate that, and the people that we have some form of influence over, when they see us commit to that, they're motivated to learn alongside us. And so I think that's very, very important. And then finally, just anytime we have the opportunity to collaborate with other professionals, specifically other superintendents, we just can't pass up those opportunities. I know some of my finest points of learning have come from discussions just like this one today, when we're talking to others about both theoretical aspects of our job and also the practical aspects of it. I'm just always motivated by other superintendents.
Thank you. Angelica.
So going back to the podcast piece, I think it's really important to model. We have student podcasts that are students that do at the high school level, and we jump on. And that's really, really helpful as we move through process of what does mini PD look like. Sorry, my phone is going crazy. I apologize for all the noise. But about learning, if you're not able to go to a conference, if you can, lead in the position you're in. You are a student leader, a teacher leader. Like, it doesn't take a formal title. If you have the opportunity to lean into your craft. If you want to be a leader and you want to be a campus leader, a district leader, see if you can attend one of those conferences so that you can network and find some mentors. I did not understand until I was probably in the position how willing all of us are to help those who want to be in the seat we're in. There are far too many superintendencies and principalships and so on for us to be fighting over them. We want to help you get to it. So if you can't go to a conference, I would say read. There's so many things. Read. You can start on Twitter. Honestly, you can start on Twitter. But two very specific trainings for leaders, I think, that are important, especially in these times after COVID. If there's a possibility for you to learn the science of implementation, the science of improvement, that improvement science piece, we can't all go to Boston and spend the week and get certified, but understand what implementation science is, what improvement science is, and then how to be effective with professional learning communities, not pretend ones, but actual professional learning communities. We're going to be just fine. As you move into leadership and you are going from the teacher into another position where you're leading adults, please pick up a book about adult learning and how to facilitate so that you don't bore folks to death with a meeting that's 12 hours. It could have been an email. And also so that we know how we can effectively lean into leading adults, because it's a very different skill set. So learn from others, find some books, start with Twitter, do everything free first. And if you ever get an opportunity, ask that principal of yours, ask that assistant soup, ask the superintendent, may I go to a conference? Because you will be surprised. They will say yes.
Right.
Leadership is not about wearing a badge. It's about understanding purpose and why. And if you can understand any of that, for a big takeaway from tonight, that's where it all starts from. Hey, very quickly, this is rapid fire right now. I'm going to combine the last two questions for you, right? Closing advice that you might have to somebody who may want to become a superintendent or maybe want to get into that leadership role, and how can people connect with you? And let's go, let's start off with Rosy first.
Yes, you're if you're thinking of this great field of service and superintendency, do it. There's no right way to get there. Know that if it feels right, then you need to go and do it. The of education that's going to say, "Oh, you're ready for it." It's that it feel it in your bones that you're ready to lead and to do right by the people that you're going to, like everybody has said here today. There's so many people out there willing to and be successful in doing that. So special to up the, leading in the superintendency. We are here. We're making. We need to see more females in the superintendency, so that it is doable, and that it can happen. It can happen, even if that this is something that you can do. Reach out, network. You can reach me anytime. Twitter is probably the best place if you need to message me and follow me. It's rvega_TIS. Where I learned a lot of great things of what's happening around the world. That's a great start. So connect. Don't be afraid to connect, even if matter. At the end of the day, we're serving children.
Service front and foremost. Absolutely. Melissa.
Absolutely do it. It's the best, hardest job you'll ever find. The most rewarding, one that gives you a lot of sleepless nights, but gives you the peace to be able to ultimately sleep. I think it's just one of the greatest professions out there, and one of the most noble of professions. I'm always open to suggestions, always open to being able to assist anyone who's in the field in any avenue of education. You can reach me on Twitter now that Josh has inspired me to become more active on Twitter.
Josh has that influence on a lot of people. He just doesn't stop. He's just programmed that way. Rita, thanks for sending that as well. Angelica.
I think the same. I'm not going to say anything different than the ladies. You do it. You're ready if you feel you're ready. Plus, you're going to learn a lot on the job. So take the challenge. Leadership is a lifestyle. So we need you and we want you. I think just like everyone else, you can email me, but Twitter is probably the best. And that's at amramsey13. We'll follow each other, send me a DM, we can connect. I'm more than willing to share my cell phone with you, and we can connect however you need. We are here to help you. We've been through the process. We know it's a very different process in the superintendency than any other job you've ever applied and interviewed for, right. But we're here to help you. We can mock interview, we can check your packet, whatever it takes. We want you to be successful and have even more success than we've had.
Love it. Joe.
Absolutely.
I'll build on what Angelica said. Leadership is a lifestyle. I wrote it down. I'll tweet it out tomorrow and tag you. I'll say this, that lifestyle means that you don't chase titles. This isn't about a position. This is about opening doors for kids, plain and simple. I've never, ever entered a job within education that I thought I was ready for. I was scared to be a teacher. I was scared to be an assistant principal, and I was really scared to become, principal and superintendent. I felt like, wow, the world is now on me. So with that, I would say more than anything else in life, you have to really invest in yourself. The most important thing you can do every day is just become a student of leadership. As Angelica said, that's how you get better. And that's how you prepare for these jobs, because really nothing can. So your best self is the only thing that's really going to equip you to lead a district.
Ooh.
So I would encourage you to do that. You can find me. I'll do a couple things here. I have a couple podcasts as well, all things education, at the schoolhouse302.com. I've run that with a dear friend and Assistant Superintendent, Dr. TJ Very. So we've been doing that for a long time, since about 2015. But on Twitter is probably the easiest way, at SUPT_Jones. My parents named me Joe Jones. Look, I've been hacked on Twitter. They did a lot of decent things, but creativity was not their strong suit.
Josh, what do you say to that, man?
I know you on that one. Wait, hey, thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. It's just amazing. This is one of the shows to see again. Thank you for everything. But you know what, Dean? I think we scored a touchdown in the red zone. We did a touchdown. Great job, everybody, for being here tonight. But Dean, don't forget the flagship show this Sunday. Brand new author, Elijah Carvajal, out of the Southwest, joining us 7 p.m. Eastern. Join us for the flagship show, Elijah Carvajal. Thank you very much to all the superintendents out there. And hey, if you see this on the rebroadcast, like it and share it. Thank you very much. Take it away, Dean.
Hey, have a great week, everybody. Again, thanks so much for our panel here tonight. Greatly appreciate your insight, your hard work, and your visionary leadership. And again, those things are what make districts a little bit better. Everybody out there, have a great week with your kids, and be well.